Hey guys, let's talk about alt characters. Now in BDO, you can get up to 30 character slots and one or two can be your main and the rest can be shelved or not even utilized. Now for me, family matters.
It's always one of those family.
So I want to utilize them on my day-to-day and make sure that I am maximizing my profits through them. Now I will be going over on what you can do to utilize your alts, and hopefully you can pick and build your own family setup after this video. But before we start, let me answer some questions that I was, asked during my talk with some of my new friends that are trying out BDO. Now, first is what is the purpose of the alts and why do you need to have other classes? Now, each class has their own strength that you could utilize. So, for example, I use Lan because she could fly easily to the docks, and then also Ninja for exploring because of the double jump. And Shai has higher life skill levels at the beginning of the creation of that character. Now, they also have different energy pools based on your max energy that you could use for multiple tasks. They can be at different locations and you could just load into that. And they have their own inventory and weight if you want to use them as a mule. And then also they have their own level, which is important for some of the quests as some of the items only drop at certain levels. They have their own mastery. And lastly, they also contribute for family fame. Now, those are just the known ones that I usually tell when I'm asked that question, but there are so much more. So let's start on my setup and hopefully you can again pick up ideas from this one. The first one is the easiest to set up, and that is the fishing alt. Now, what I have over here is an alt that is below 50, which makes it that it cannot be killed through PvP. And also it has the Balenos fishing rod, which allows, auto fishing time deduction. And I also have a pet that does give additional auto fishing time deduction, which would result into more fish, even though the fishing resources are exhausted. Now, BDO is popular for, at least in the inner circle, for the koi events, what do we call it, and also some of the other fishes, for example, the octoboy event, wherein they have this one. But basically, these are just 500,000 worth items that you could vendor tax-free. And you could get a lot of these ones, kind of like the Reddit post that was recently posted. He or she already has 12,000 worth of coelacanth fish or coelacanth, depending on how you would want to pronounce it. And that is about 6.1 billion worth of fish from AFK activity. So you could pair it up with, active activity. And if you want to step away to do something else, then that would definitely benefit you. And then sometimes they do have these rare 5 million ones events. And there's also prize fishes that are available right now that is costing about 1 million to 4 million worth. So definitely a good source of money. Now, the best thing that was added was the discarded glass bottle. Now, this would help you out on building your contribution points and also your fishing XP. And there is also the breezy conch seaweed that you could help you on your T9 awakenings, and also the silver key that you would use for the golden treasure chest for the golden keys, which is going to be more expensive in the following patch. So this is one of the things that you would want to consider when setting this one up. And then there's also events kind of the Mysteries of Summer before that would require you to fish for certain items. And then also in the Land of the Morning Light, you also have to fish for specific items for the journal. It's not intensive, but it's good to have a fishing alt that you could place wherever there is, wherever the event is. For example, mine is currently at the Determined Beach, and I don't remove it from here, so that if I want to do grinding, I could just switch to my main without leaving this spot, and I would be able to change to that one and then back to my fishing character if I want to. Now, this next one is for your boss alts. Now, this is where you really need to put some alts in, for example, Garmoth and also Vel, because they drop the hearts that are very important for the end game, for the fiery affix, and then also for the 3 AP additional sheet from Vel's heart. So the good thing about this one is that you only need to hit them a couple of times. You don't really have to do much damage. And there is a function that hides, like the other adventures in your menu, to make sure that you're not bogged down when you're doing the boss. And you can see that there is a lot of white dots over here. And there is going to be an update for Garmoth where it would appear 14 times, which gives you more chances for it. But like you can only claim up to 3 prices for that one. But like at least like there would be a lot more time slots for you to take on like Garmoth. And currently right now, with the popularity of the game, Garmoth kind of like dies like easily, and you don't have really much time to kind of like go here and travel if you're traveling, let's say, from a far away land, kind of like the Valencia, or if you're kind of like grinding from Land of the Morning Light, unless you do have like a Magnus port, but like it would still get you to the Marek farm. You would see over here, I just like toggled my screen, and he is already about 70% of his life. Now, for the sake of time, I just want to explain like which bosses I have my alts placed in and how I make money off of them. And the first one is, of course, Kazarka, that can be also summoned as Nightmarish Kazarka, Karanda, Stormbringer Karanda, Kurum, Thundercloud Kurum, and then Nuver, Bloodstorm Nuver, and then like also Offentet now that they added the Mythical Feather, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Now, the reason for these ones is because they drop certain auras, which is called the latent auras, that can be converted to a weapon box, which they also drop at a rate. And after 100, you would get like a box, which you could sell or use for melting for the boss auras that you could use to create black stars. Now, whenever you get like those boxes, the succeeding exchanges would be memory fragments. And that is very helpful if you're trying to enhance and accumulate ones, because they spawn regularly throughout the day. If you're working from home, that's very good. If not, then they have like a lot of spawn times during the night and the morning too. So you could exchange those ones for memory fragment and exchange them, for either selling it from the market or using it for, again, like for enhancing. Now, there are also drop chances, for example, Heart of Karanda, which gives you an additional crystal slot. And then like I also showed you guys like the Vale's Heart, which is also going to be here. And then like for Kurum and Nuver, like one of my favorite things about this one is that they have a chance to drop some of like the parts for their furniture, like the Kurum lamp and also the Nuver lamp, which give you a great buff. You could buy them off of the market as a pre-order, but like I do just craft them whenever I get it, and it greatly gives me buffs that I need for grinding. And then the other thing about like these ones is that like for Nuver, you would need a lot of his skills in order for you to get the guaranteed Garmoth Hearts quest completed. So definitely like if you're able to attend like Nuver at a regular rate, do so. And the droppings over here for Nuver 2 is also a pathway for the Nuver costume. So those are the ones that I normally go to, and then like occasionally Offentet for the Mythical Feathers for like the T10. Now there are some field bosses over here at the map, which I sometimes go to, but like their like schedule is kind of like iffy in a way, and it's not fixed. So that's why sometimes I miss them the most. And for beginners, don't frustrate yourself. Like if you have some alts at the area, like then do so. But if not, then just go to like the main bosses. Again, it's like Kazarka, Karanda, Kurum, Nuver, and Offentet. Now, the next one is what I call the roamers, and they have 2 responsibilities. One is to talk to region-based NPCs that, of course, like would not move. It's going to be permanently there. And then also take care of the rifts depending on like the territory. Now, they are also responsible for taking care of my inventory for some of the cities. So these are my season outcasts. So after I do and try them out for a season, I don't want to use them again, and they become governors of my city. So one example is like after I beat Karanda, I transfer my auras to the inventory of my city, and then I fetch them via a maid, which is given out by the game a lot of times now. and I would like get them and put them in my inventory and then talk to the NPC. Now I do exchange like these ones from Aura like a bit by bit. I try to save most of them just in case that there's an event that uses these auras. And after that one, I would be going ahead and exchange. I'm going to the Dark Rifts to beat them and to get the rewards. Now, again, like the reason for that one is because like it's spread apart. There are some at the Old Wisdom Tree, one at like the Tooth Fairy Cabin, and then like going to Giant Post, and then like there is also one in the desert. So I don't want to kind of like waste time, even though I have a T10 on like traveling. So that makes my life a lot easier. So one in Calphion handles all of these ones. One in like Heidel and like Vela that travels and beat like Red Nose and Begs for me, and also the ones at Eldritch Shrine. One at Medaya that takes care of Silnux and Ferid. And then also she's also the one that is doing my questing for the horses, which is we're gonna be talking about later on. And then the one that like takes care of Newberg just goes down to Ancient Puterum. Now this next one is one of my favorites, and this is my cooking squad, and my witch is the main cook. And the good thing about this character is that like she can teleport. So whenever I want to kind of like save time, like teleporting from one place to another, going to the Imperial, then she really helps out, especially with like Grana's setup. Like the spaces are close, so one teleport could get you to the other one, and then it saves the time of the buffs that I have. And then with Dracania too, with the Gathering, there are some resources that are far apart, and her flight is the one that saves me time. And also my Sage, which is one of my favorite characters, of course. Like, unequipping the sniper rifle and then like portaling his way to another spot and then like re-equipping it, like saves me a lot of time. So these are the ones that gather most of my material that I use for cooking. So I do the Dalbiol, Gupbop, and then also Valencia meals. So I don't have to move them and make them back and forth because my main base is at Grana, and my Sage normally stays at Ailton or Land of the Morning Light, and my Dracania like just like goes around depending on the materials that I haven't saved up yet. And normally I do like 10k runs before I move on to another spot, so I have a lot in stock. Now let's move on to the T10 enhancing alts that I have. Now these are the ones that are responsible for getting me the material. So one of the materials that is popular, of course, like with the pre-order, you will see here that there's like 1 million pre-orders, and it's kind of impossible to get through the market, so you have to gather, or you could breed your plants in order to get them. And these are my farming alts. So I do have like magical fireflake flowers and also like the perilla that I do use for my alchemy and also like cooking. And these alts like breed them for me. And you would see like I would get like the blush, which is like good for the contribution points. But like the ones that like I really target for these ones are like these fruits. And it's very impossible, again, like to get it off of the market, but it's so easy to get them off of farming. Now, the good thing about like having like farming alts is that you could also farm depending on what you need on specific occasions. You could buy special seeds off of the market, and then like you could continue to breed them, or you could also like farm them. So one example, one of the Gook Bops does use like magical, like not magical, but like hot peppers. So these are the ones that like I harvest, and you will see that I get a lot, and these are the ones that I grind for the powdered like hot peppers. So all in all, like, like farming is one of the best things that you could do in the game. And with an alt, once these ones like reaches like 100%, then you could cultivate them or breed them. And so you could like kind of like reset the clock for it to go up again. So if you're like working from home, you could get like at least like 3 harvests at most. And I placed my farm also near the whales farm, which is like one of my favorite location in this game because I do need milk. So these are like the cows that like I can harvest. from, and the mini game is like super easy. They buff like the rates for the milk, and I'm able to get like the milk to like just in case like I need them for like some of the batches of cooking that I do. So definitely explore having a farm at like Olvia Wells farm if you want to like kind of like mimic this one. But if not, then like place them wherever like you would need to, that is accessible to certain NPCs that you would need to access. Now, my Mystic currently is my main horse trainer, and like I used her for one of the seasons and never got to use her again. And I am now using her to get the quest at Stone Tail Horse Ranch, which is located at the left side of like Altinova, north of Tariff. And there is a NPC here called Wapra. So he is the one that gives out like the fern quests that you would need to get like the materials needed for the T10 if you plan to do so. So he gives a daily and a weekly, and what he requires from you is to capture a horse in order to get the ferns. Now it's about 50, and then like if you are at like guru training, you would get like 7 of the ferns. If you are at masters, you would get 6, and so on and so forth. And Shamhain also give out a quest, the In Search of the Finest Courser, that gives you the sellable like versions of the horse materials for T9. So this is the one that I get and I accumulate whenever I want to tap some of the coursers that I've trained. And what I normally do is like after getting those 2 quests, I would go now to the Medea Castle, wherein like there are horses over here at this part right here, and that is the most abundant one. With the increase of like the horse spawn rate to at least like 30 to 60 minutes instead of like hours, it will be also beneficial for you to capture a few horses for some money. You could sell them for a few amounts of silver, which I would be showing in a few. Now, I'm currently at Kusha, and the main reason is that they have a separate stable count, which means that I could put at least like 4 over here and expand depending on my needs. And this is separate from Altinova, so you could have your Imperial forces over there. Now, you could do a few things. What I do is like I train these horses up until like at least like level 25-ish, and I breed them so I could get a chance of a tier 7, which is like what you see on what I'm currently training right now, which yields like a higher like sell value. And also they also have like higher Flowers of Oblivion, which we use for the T10 enhancing. Now, what you can also do too, like if you're just like trying to level up your experience, is that like you could sell these mounts directly. So for example, this one, like my Asada, like I could just sell her for 6 million, and then like the other ones too like are fairly pricey. So you could capture a few horses in a day. You could get like about like 25 million, like as you can see over here, easily 25 million for a few like minutes of work. And I kind of sped that one up, but like it was really fast. And if you know like all of the horse locations, you could just like do like a full circle and then be able to sell all of those horses and be able to get your funds easily, and also your training levels. So this is one thing that I recommend like highly if you want to get like the ferns, the Flower of Oblivion, and if you're trying to get like a T10 and having an alt instead of like waiting for your main to go here at Medaya. It is also available with Liana, but like my only gripe with that one is sometimes like I do have some buggy instances on them that causes me not to receive the item. So yeah, like probably just me, but like that's my take. So that's why I'm sticking here to at the Stone Tail Horse Ranch. So for this next one, we would talk about treasures, and I have a few characters that I have labeled as my treasure grinders. Now, there are a few treasure items that are very valuable in the game. First is, of course, the infinite HP pot and also the MP pot. So when I was first grinding for them, I've placed a couple of them at, Shere Khan and one at Bloodwolf, so that if I only have like 15 to 20 minutes a day, if I have like other responsibilities, I could just log in, grind for them, and be able to get, a few PD pieces plus the weekly quest that you get from the NPC. So part of it are my roamers. So I have one roamer that handles everything, from like, the mansions to the tanning at Navarne Step when I was grinding for my MP pot. And like she's the one that took care of like the Ronin and the Ahab Griffon, and as well as like doing some Tooth Fairy grinding for the HP pot piece. Now, the good thing about like, again, like for this one is that you could just like pick the weekly, and then if you have just like a few minutes in a day, like you could sneak in some grinding. And I do recommend, like, my favorite treasure grinder is of course like Musa and Ranger, because of like their one-click skills. So like I've mouse bound the Rising Storm to my mouse function 1, so I could just like click that one and like do the blender. And then for the Ranger, the Descending Currents is very helpful. So I've currently been like kind of like, struggling. I would say, I don't want to use the other word. It's because like, I've been trying like the map pieces for years now. I would say like 2 years at least. And I haven't gotten a drop from like Pila Ku, but like I was able to get it from the Sulfur. And again, like the PDPs, like there's no PDPs for this one. So I have one at Pila Ku, and then I do transfer her to Sulfur Mine before, when I didn't have like the pieces back then. And she is also the one that has my unicorn that travels like the desert if I want to grind for the compass piece, which unfortunately I do not have complete yet, like, after years of grinding. So I'm probably seated to not have like those treasure items at all. So these grinders are very efficient in a way, because like you could use your main character, but that takes away time from them being at the main grind spot, and being able to just like assign an alt that is enough to kind of like grind on these spots and not struggle is very, like time efficient in a way. But of course, like it takes time. It takes a few seasons for you to kind of like set it up. And it's totally up to you if, again, like, you would want to have this kind of like setup. But one thing that I would recommend, especially for, treasure grinding, is that like don't get consumed by it. I've seen a lot of players that like once they see somebody on their spot, they would just like PK you or like, deck your guild. So be careful on that. So having alts allows you to just like be able to pop out without worrying about your buffs running. Now, this next one is also one of my favorites, and this is my enhancer. So if you can see, like, this is my Bugatti Shy. So there was a collaboration between Bugatti and BDO, and I was able to get a costume for her, and it looks fantastic, I would say, up to now. And the good thing about the enhancer, like, alt, is that you don't have to worry about weight anymore, because before, like, you have to go to, to Grana or to Heidel, to Vela to fetch your items. Now you could just like simply store it and fetch it anywhere. And the reblats, I still do it like, for stacking, and then I just like get the ones that I need from the storage instead of like having it all on my character. One thing too is like, she controls all of my materials that I use for basically like the enhancing of my main gear. Like, for example, like the crystals. So like my sealed black crystals is over here with her. Also some of like the field stacks that I have that I use for field stacking. So I have like everything on her, so it will be much easier. My artisans is also with her currently. And then like also a lot of like the other materials that I need, some of the memory fragments that I pull out, it's also with her. So that if I need to do enhancing, the luck of the Bugatti costume, I mean, would be there. And, like most of my successful enhancement, kind of like my pen, like Black Stars, my pen gear, my pen accessories, like all came from her. So like, say it as like a superstition, like, but I think that like she's my luckiest character on my account. Now, one of the life skill that I enjoy the most in the game is called bartering. And there are a lot of islands in the game that you need to explore in order for you to get this. And of course, like a lot of setup for your character itself. Now, you wouldn't want to tie up your main grinder with like bartering unless like you would want like the metal. And the reason for that one is because like this one takes a lot of time and a lot of like the barter activities are time gated. So you would want an alt that could barter for you and leave your main grinder where your grinding is at. Now, the increases of like the barter prices for like the T5 or the level 5 items to 7.5 has somewhat greatly increased the amount of money that you can make. And in addition to the increase of the crow coins that you get, that you can exchange for, let's say, like Clon Stones, memory fragments, and then the Clon's Heart, of course. So this is one activity that I would recommend for those that like loves ship in general. So for me, like, I have the lawn that like does the flying that makes it easier to go from dock to dock. And I would suggest that you could take a look on some of the videos that I have so you'll be able to, kind of like learn what bartering is. And I do have like an updated one coming out soon. So I'm not going to expound on this one anymore, but like this would tie up really a lot of your time again. And the best way for me is to have an alt that would handle like this one specifically so that like I don't take my main out of land. And last but not the least, it's my main. And I just want her to be sitting near Olun's or like the crypt so I could grind whenever I would want to with my group. And also sometimes I could just like go to Gaifen via Magnus. But as I mentioned, like I try to save as much money as I can because I'm frugal that way. Even though it's easy to get money in BDO for the Magnus travel, I don't want to spend that much. So I just like have her sit here. And all of the other alts that I have that I mentioned, correlates to my whole like game plan for BDO. And that is kind of like governing multiple alts, being able to create systems in order for me to funnel and create more money and be able to organize Maria Kondo out of like, my items. And that is basically like, my setup. So in summary, the ones that I mentioned in the beginning is that, you would just like use your like alts for main grinding, sub grinding, roaming for quest, dark rifts, alternate life skill that you want. If you want to cook, if you want to barter, if you want to hunt, then you would have like different squads for it. And all in all, like, the purpose of really for the alts is to funnel more money into your family account because like silver is shared, inventory is shared, and you won't have any issues with the weapons because of the weapon exchange coupons. So that is it, guys. Like, hopefully this has helped you out. I know it was a long one, but again, if this has helped you out in any ways, please do leave a like and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next guide. Peace.